This is really very exciting, and I'm happy to be here. Okay, so today I'll be talking about one of my favorite topic, which is falling in love with the problem statement. Now, this presentation is focused on emphasizing that how critically important it is for any product manager to spend good enough time in the problem space so that they can better understand their consumer needs. And with that, they can build great products and be successful. All right. So I want to very quickly confirm that this presentation is purely based on my learning, which I have obtained working as a product manager throughout my career and attending a lot of conferences and reading. It is something which has not been endorsed or sponsored by my company or any other institute. This is the agenda for today, where we'll be talking about what is product sense and why product sense. It is very important for a product manager to have a good product sense. We'll discuss what is that product managers can do to better understand their consumer needs and pain point. And then finally, how to define a good problem statement and some more details around that. Okay, so now before we go ahead and understand what is product sense, I want us to take a moment to look at these stats from 2019. These are related to a launch of new consumer facing products. I'm going to read it very quickly. They deliver a message and we'll discuss that. So as per research conducted by Harvard Business School, each year, more than 30,000 new consumer products are launched. And out of those 30,000, 95% of them fail. Also, as per CB Insights, which is a very reliable tech marketing platform, 42% shut down startup that launch a product didn't solve a valid consumer problem. So it's telling us that these startups, they produce a new product that goes to the market and it was nowhere close to the addressing consumer needs. Study also reveals that only 11% of a new consumer remain engaged after 52 weeks. So what's telling us here is that when the new product goes to the market, there was some kind of adoption, there was some kind of engagement, but gradually there was a decline in those engagement. And we are looking at around 89% decline over after 52 weeks. It's a huge number. So very concerning for any company. Also, as per Market Research Association, only 40% of a developed product make it to the market, and 60% out of those 40% generate any kind of a revenue. And the last one, as per the University of Toronto, the failure rate for new product launch in grocery sector is between 70 to 80%. Again, big number. So these are very interesting stats. And the reason I wanted to bring in front of us today is to acknowledge the fact that there is a problem. There's a problem when it comes to build and launch a new product in the market. There were multiple studies conducted to understand some of the potential reasons why these new products fail in the market. And a number of reasons for that. It could be because of a bad design, which produce a poor consumer experience. It could be poor go-to-market strategy, wrong pricing, could be a number of it. But the number one reason for those failure is lack of product sense. I think it's 42% because of lack of product sense. So what is product sense and why is it so important for the success of any product or in the product development lifecycle? Let's have a look at that. Okay, so product sense is the ability to understand what makes product great and deliver great value. So let's understand how value is delivered. So value is delivered when product is successfully able to meet or address consumer needs or pain point. So what this tells us is that in order for us to address consumer needs or pain point, we need to first understand who the consumers are, what are their pain points, validate that they are real problems, and then go about solving those problems. The solving part comes later. The first thing is to better understand those consumer needs. And that's what this topic is all about, which is falling in love with the problem statement. So when I say that, what do I really mean is to better understand your consumer needs and their pain point. So understand this, people don't want to buy product. They're looking for solution to their problem. I mean, what motivates them to go online or go to the market is like something that can address their pain point or meet their needs. And remember, the more painful the problem you can solve, the more opportunity you have for the success. Let's take an example. Let's say I want to go to the airport, I want to catch a flight and I need a cab service for that. Now my problem is that I don't know which cab service to call. I don't know how to call that cab. I don't know how much that cab is going to cost me, when it's going to come, and most importantly, will it take me to the airport on time? These are not only mine, these were very common pain points. And some of my needs are, I need to know how to call a cab. I want that process to be very simple. I need to know in advance how much it's going to cost me, what's the ETA, and then most importantly, again, that it takes me what time it takes me to my destination. Like I said, these were very common pain points and needs for a lot of consumer or user segment, like the example I gave you, which was addressed by Uber. And that's what makes Uber a very successful company. I like a saying which goes like, people don't want to buy a quarter-inch drill, they want quarter-inch hole. It implies the same thing which I was mentioning, that people are not out there buying a product, they're looking for a solution to their problem. That's what they're looking for. So now let's talk about what is that product managers can do to better understand their consumer needs and pain point. Well, the first and most important thing is spend time in the problem space. Like Albert Einstein once said, and I quote, if I had an hour to solve a problem, I'll spend 55 minutes thinking about the problem and 5 minutes thinking about the solution. It's so true what he said. And all those stats we were looking at, it was telling us that all these companies were unable, they failed to address consumer needs because there was not sufficient time spent in the analysis phase. And analysis phase is where the problem statement is well defined. I think it's a human tendency to jump into the solution before understanding and defining the problem. Before they comprehend the real problem, it's a tendency to jump into the solution. And unfortunately, this very tendency can prevent us to understand the real problem our consumer are facing and come up with a true delightful solution. I'll give you an example of Facebook. Facebook have very cool digital products. And they have 5 core values, out of which one is focus on impact. Which means to have the biggest impact, we need to focus on finding and solving the most important problem, which is why it is critically important for any product manager to spend good enough time in the problem space so that they can come closer to their consumer needs. So what is that product managers are expected to do? They are spending time, but what activities they can do to come closer to their consumer needs? Well, here's another thing. You need to, in order for you to come closer to your consumer need, you need to conduct user research. Now, user research is the most critical part of the product development lifecycle. It enables you to produce a reliable insight that can guide the product decision. It's a very powerful process, and trust me, if conducted properly, it transforms the company into a learning-based organization that use decision making facts to achieve the strategic goal or strategic objective. And that's what exactly product manager expected to do. It helps you to uncover who your consumer are, what problem they are facing, how they think their product could be valuable to the consumer. And if, let's say, for example, you have some assumption or hypothesis, you can conduct a user research to validate or reject those assumptions. There are different kind of methods to conduct the user research. And I'm going to talk about very famous one, which is qualitative and quantitative research. And based on what your research objective is, you will pick what those objectives are. So in a very high level, let's look at that. So quantitative research is conducted to gather data through survey, application metrics like Google or Adobe Analytics. These are those tools which hook up on your digital products and they produce some matrix which gives you good insight, or A/B testing. Whereas in qualitative research, the data is gathered through interviewing your customer directly by face-to-face or meeting with them or conducting a focus group. In the case of quantitative research, it's used in a scenario where you're looking to validate or reject some of your assumption or hypothesis. Like an example I have here, that I have a hypothesis here that I believe that by adding consumer name in the email subject line will increase the open rate by 40%. That's one of my assumptions. And I can very quickly validate this or invalidate this by doing a A/B testing. Whereas qualitative research is more open-ended, because this is where you're looking to understand your user behavior, their purchase journey, try to understand how they interact with your product, or maybe trying to detect any unexpected pattern. Another important thing is that there may be a possibility that within your organization, there are going to be some data available that you can leverage to make decisions or get answer to some of the questions you may have. That's called secondary research. I'm pretty sure that in your organization, you can work with the data scientist or other product team to understand how to get access to that data. And that can be very useful also. But the important thing is that a good product manager builds a well-rounded product roadmap by relying on consumer feedback and data which is gathered via all these research I'm talking about. So to be honest, the user research is a very broad topic. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to limit the topic, the scope of this user research to only qualitative research where data is gathered through interviewing your customer. However, in the end, I have some references where if you want to know more about user research in depth, and you can use those links. So coming back to qualitative research where data is gathered through interviewing your customer. Okay, so Henry Ford once said, and I quote, that if I had asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses. But think about it, is that what really people wanted? No, they wanted to go from destination A to destination B faster. So what I'm implying here is your customer know what they want, but they may not be able to articulate it all the time accurately, which is why it is very important for any product manager to be very well prepared before they interact with their consumer and ask good open-ended questions. A good open-ended question can produce great insight, and they can really uncover the real problem. And that's exactly what you're trying to do. When you're interacting with your consumer, you're trying to come closer to the real problem they are facing so that you can solve the right problem and become successful. Some of the things before you go and interact with your consumer, first thing you need to do is you need to determine what is your research objective. I mean, are you trying to better understand a particular problem your consumer is facing? Are you trying to, is there a product decision you're trying to make, or you're trying to understand why the churn rate on your product is increasing? Could be a number of reasons, but based on your objective, you will come up with the good open-ended questions. Second thing, you should also identify and recruit the target customer group. I mean, this can focus on a particular market segment or a user segment who demonstrate a particular behavior, or perhaps match a demographic. Now, after you conduct the interview, you're back in the office, you have all this data, and you'll conduct the analysis on that data to extract the insight based on which you'll make a product decision. Now remember, in order for you to make a valuable product decision, you need a reliable data, which can only be extracted by asking good questions to your customer. So what is good question? What makes question good? Let's have a look at that. So in theory, good questions create good dialogue. It allows interviewer to better understand what's going on. In a nature, they are open-ended because it encourages the interviewee to respond with more context than simple yes and no. A good question uncovers customer needs and pain point. Like I have already mentioned, that the quality solution or a product is tailored to consumer needs. A good question will challenge your assumptions. We all have assumptions and about a product or an idea, which is why we are interacting with these customers, because their insight, their response will help us to validate or reject those assumptions. And also, good questions are provides rich qualitative data, as it enables you to gather viewpoint, feeling, opinions from your customer about the product and the idea you may have. We're going to look at some of the good open-ended interview questions that can help really uncover the real problem. All right. So the first one is why, and this is by far the most powerful question you can ask. Each time you ask why, you are coming one step closer to the heart of the issue. Another one, in a scenario when you're trying to discover your consumer needs or frustration, a question like, what are some of the challenges you encounter when you do ABC or XYZ? Any activity, any action. This will give them a platform, and they will think about it, and they'll walk their journey, and throughout the journey, and they will pinpoint their pain points, their need, their frustration. That's all valuable data. In a scenario when you are trying to validate the idea, a question like, what do you like about how you use our app to do certain activities? In case when you're trying to discover or compare the options, a question like, is there a piece of version you prefer over others? And if consumer respond, you can follow up with why. That will also bring you closer to the, like, why they prefer this version versus other version, and some of more rich data you can get. Couple of more, like, how would you improve the product to better fit your needs, is a good product fit question, and how you solve this today. Another good one in case you're discovering consumer needs or frustration. So what we're going to do now is we're going to test the power of why by applying it to the Henry Ford most famous code and see how closer it brings us to the real problem. So I'll Read this again. The quote goes like, if I have asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses. Now, why do you need a new horse? Because it's old. Why do you need to replace it when it's get old? Because it's too slow. Why do you need it to run fast? Because I want to get to my destination faster. So this is a perfect example of a why. And then each time you ask why, it makes your consumer think, and their response is bringing them closer to the real problem they are facing, their real need, that exactly why you are there to reveal. So let's say um, you you got your research objective, you interacted with your consumer, you interviewed them, you got all the data, you did analysis, and you're pretty good and you're pretty close to understand what exactly their problem is. Now is the time for you to write the problem statement. Remember, you're still in the problem space. You're not solving anything. All you're doing is all the learnings you have got from your customer, you're writing in a problem statement that's going to help you and your organization. So let's first understand what is the purpose of problem statement. So the main purpose of problem statement is to explain the identified problem. It recognizes the gap between the current state, which is the problem, and the future state, that is the goal. Here are some of the good attributes of problem statement. A good problem statement is user-centric. It focuses on user and their needs. Remember, all the time and effort you spent in the analysis phase to understand the problem. Now you're going to articulate it and express in this problem statement. A good problem statement focuses on problem, not the solution. It does not define the solution or method of reaching the solution. It simply focuses on a problem. A good problem statement is inspiring. I mean, I bet you will be communicating your problem statement within your organization to your peers, executive leaders, and when they read it, it should inspire them. A good problem statement framed the way that is actionable. Anyone who read it know exactly what the problem and should be able to take it forward and move forward with it, know what to do next. Of course, it should be concise, easy to understand, and most importantly, a good problem statement, well-defined problem statement takes time. It's not something that you can come up with it within a day or 2 days. It could take an average of 1 to 2 weeks. And I would recommend, once you write the problem statement, you should vet it. You can bring people and ask them to read the problem statement and ask them what is that they interpreted out of it. And you keep doing it until you realize that what their interpretation is closer to what exactly you were trying to express. Then you know you're getting there. Okay. What we're going to do now is we're going to look at some of the good and not so good example of the problem statement. So the first one is from the Facebook news feed. And it goes like, I don't have an easy way to see what all my friends are doing without going to each of their profiles separately, which is ineffective. It's a perfect example of a user-centric problem statement and very concise. The statement clearly expressed the user pain point and seems actionable. Another one. New parent need a way to feel connected to support group because they spend large amount of time alone with their babies and end up feeling isolated and lonely. Now, this problem statement clearly defines the user segment, which is the new parent, their pain point, which is feeling of being lonely, their need, which is to stay connected to the support group. A design team can simply take this problem statement and know what they're looking to solve. It is an example of not so good crafted problem statement. Customer wants to be able to pay their bill using the smartphone. Now, this problem statement seems to be more focused on a feature of customer using their smartphone to pay the bill. It does not give you it does not express the pain point. It does not talk about any need. It more likely seems to be more like organizational need. Now, remember, if you put a hint of product or a solution in your problem statement is not well defined, and you may find yourself far away from solving the problem, or maybe you'll end up solving a wrong problem, which was not important to solve at that given time. All right, with that, here are some of the key takeaways I have for today. The first one is spend time identifying the problem. Now, as a product manager, you should ditch the solution mindset and spend time in the problem space so that you can uncover the real problem. And that's the second key takeaway. Focus on listening to the voice of your customer. Interact with them so that you can better understand their need. And third, define a good problem statement, as it will guide you and your team and provide you a focus on specific need that needs to be uncovered. Here are some of the readings I would like to recommend. I did mention about the user research. So user research to validate product idea by Michael Burke. This is a recorded webinar on Product School blog. So very good one and my favorite. In this webinar, Michael focused on how to leverage user research technique to validate customer demand for a new product, which is very important because it helps making sure there's a demand in the market before you start building something. And when I say demand, basically I mean there's a need, there's a consumer need in the market before you start building something. Another one is the product book. If it's How to Become a Great Product Manager by Josh and Carlos. It's published by Product School. If you're new into product management, if you want to converting into product management, I would recommend this book. It covers a good foundation of a product management and also creating hypotheses, validating hypotheses, how a product manager work with design or engineer, and eventually end-to-end product development lifecycle, how a product manager build a product and bring it to the market. The Lean Startup by Eric Ries, again, is a very good book. In this book, Eric elaborates on how today entrepreneurs use continuous innovation to create radically successful business. Most of the startups use the methodologies which are in this book, one of which is MVP, a concept of minimum viable product. It's all about with the limited level of effort, what is that a product team can build, consumer facing, and put it in the market in front of the consumer so that they can learn fast. It's a very good concept and very successful too. Pretty sure there are going to be a lot of details about MVP you can find on the internet. If not, I'll be more than happy to come back and do another webinar on that. And How to Know Your Customer by Will Najjar. He's also a good product manager, I think, on Amazon. And that's also something that is available on Product School blog. And in the last, there are a lot of YouTube channels and webinar by Product School. And if you're aspiring product manager or you're trying to enhance your skill as a product manager, I would recommend one of their certification. It's really worth it. It can really help you when you start a job as a product manager, what exactly you need to do and how can you be successful. And that's all. So this is all I have for you guys today. And this is the way you can connect me. I am more than happy to answer any question you guys may have for me now.